In this video, we're going to talk about how to find the trig functions of any angle. So let's begin with a reminder of the trig functions of special angles. So our special angles for 2 pi radian goes from 0 to almost 360. So that's 0, 30, 45, and 60, which is all contained within the first quadrant. And then we have 90, 180, and 270. So every pi over 2 after that. So you don't have to commit these to memory, but you can always draw those special 30, 60, 90, or 45, 45, 90 triangles to find these exact values. And if I were you, I would definitely pause the screen right now and copy down this chart, as well as include the inverses of sine, cosine, and tangent and their values for those angles. Something that comes into play here is coterminal angles. Now those are 2 angles that are in standard position, where the initial side is right here at 0 degrees, and the terminal side is somewhere in one of the 4 quadrants. So those are 2 angles in standard position that share the same terminal side. So usually it's an example like this, where I have 120 degrees and a coterminal angle is negative 240 that comes around and shares this terminal side. So another one is this guy. And also I can have 45 degrees, negative 375, and another coterminal angle of both of them is 405. So I can loop around once and come back around. So let's use coterminal angles to find the exact value of sine of 390 degrees. So 390 degrees is 30 degrees beyond one turn around the Cartesian plane. So if I start with my initial side, I go around once, that's 360. I come up again, so that's going to give me 390 degrees. But also know that a coterminal angle that I have here is 30 degrees. And I can use any one of the methods that I know to find the exact value of sine of 30, which is 1/2. And something that is wicked important here are the signs of each trig function, so all 6 of them in all 4 quadrants. So there's a couple cute little tricks to this. I'll show you that in a moment. But whenever I'm in any one of these 4 quadrants, sine, cosine, tangent, and their inverses are either going to be a positive or negative ratio. So in the first quadrant, all of them are positive. And then from the second, third, and fourth, depending on where you are and what trig function you're looking for, it could be positive or negative. So one way that I like to represent it, or remember it, is using something called ASTC, starting at 1, going to 2, 3, and 4. So there's a lot of different ways you can remember that. I remember it as all students take calculus. So what that means is that all trig functions, A, are positive in the first quadrant. So the S is only sine is positive. And so if sine's positive, cosecant is positive as well. And then in the third quadrant, our T, tan, and cotan are going to be positive. And then in the fourth quadrant, C, only cosine and secant are going to be positive. So that's one way to remember that. And the last thing we're going to cover in this video is something called reference angles. So those are 2 angles that are created between an angle in standard position with a terminal side, so for example this one right here, and then the acute angle that you can draw from that terminal side to the closest x-axis. So really it is the shortest amount of degrees or the smallest angle that you can make to get from that terminal side to the x-axis. So in quadrant 1, the angle is its own reference angle. In quadrant 2, it's always the angle from that terminal side down. In quadrant 3, it actually goes back up. And in quadrant 4, it continues and completes this circle here. Another little trick to this is something that I like to call the bow tie. So it's a triangle that you draw to the x-axis, and if you were to draw all 4 of them, it would look like a snazzy little bow tie. Bill and I would be proud. All right? And please do not forget the ASTC trick, because depending on what quadrant you're in, it may or may not be positive. So let's do one final example. Let's find the exact value of sine of 210 degrees using reference angles. So 210 degrees, if we start out at 0, that's going to go to 90 to 180, and then finish out in the third quadrant. So this is 210 degrees. So if I draw my reference triangle here, right, I know that 210 minus 180 gives me 30 degrees. So my reference angle is 30 degrees. And I know that sine of 30 degrees is 1/2. But what quadrant are we in? So all students take calculus. Only tan is positive. So that means that sine in the third quadrant, so sine of 210 degrees, is actually going to be negative 1/2. And that's going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching.